Welcome back to Hawaii Real. I'm here today with Lanikai Brewing brewer Scott Vaughn.
That's me.
That's him, and he's brought with him some good samples, man.
Just a few samples.
So Lanikai Brewing is based out of Kailua,
Correct.
Right? And how long has Lanikai Brewing been going on?
Almost 5 years now. So the original owners got together, and as with any brewery, the build out takes kind of a bit of time. Mm-hmm. So the build out, I believe, took 18 months to 2 years, and then we've been brewing ever since.
So what separates Lanikai Brewing from any other local brewers?
So Lanikai Brewing, it says on all of our labels, island inspired. That's sort of the mantra or ethos, and that means that every single beer that we do has some sort of local ingredient in it or some sort of local technique. So for instance, the Cavenna right there, that has two different local pieces. The first one is going to be the actual the lactobacillus culture that's in there. That's wild captured inside our brewery. That's the bacteria that gives it its sourness.
Okay.
And then the mango itself was also locally harvested mango and processed at the brewery. So I believe the mangoes from this were winter mangoes that we got off the North Shore.
It is mango-y. That's really good.
So that's one of the things we do with every single beer. So if you're looking over here, the Pog beer.
Yeah, this is kind of like a sour apple, mango-ish kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of light, approachable, not too sour. This is what you would, if you were being like super accurate, you would call it a petite sour. So it's 50% of a sour beer, 50% of a not sour beer, but the same base grains that went into it.
It gets more sour than that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This guy right here are going to be significantly
So what'd you bring for us here?
So this sampler right here, the two on the end, these are our more production beers that we do on a more regular basis.
Okay.
That's the Forever Summer Pog. That's our Pog Sour. It's the original Pog Sour. Local ingredient in that is going to be, again, that same lactobacillus culture. We also use local lilikoi and local orange zest.
Okay, so this is going to have that kind of a lilikoi flavor?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the one over here on this end, this is our Imperial IPA. That's our flagship, I guess you could say. It's the one that we make all the time. So,
is this the popular one?
That's our best-selling beer right there. 8% ABV roughly, and we use pikake in there, which is jasmine flowers. So
how do you guys do that?
I make a hot water infusion with it. So kind of like making a tea. That'd be the best way to describe it. But a big batch of tea that goes into there.
So you steep pikake.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Who would have thought? I never would have thought to do that with that kind of flour.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
It gives it a very sort of, the flour itself is very delicate, but we brew it at extreme strength to counteract a lot of the other stuff that's going on.
Does the color of the flour matter?
It depends on what you're doing. So it's actually a good example. So this one right here, this one has hibiscus in it. So the hibiscus gives it almost like a red wine type color. So that does matter, but the pikake, not so much. The pikake doesn't do that.
Pua, alo.
Alo or pua, alo, however you like it. My pronunciations are still pretty rusty.
Pua, alo. Hibiscus red sour wild ale.
Yeah. So this one was the one that was actually our gold medal winner at the Hawaiian Craft Beer Awards.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's.
So how do they judge that?
They do a blind taste test. There's some, I believe we have some brewer panel judges on island. I'm not 100%. But the people that actually judged it, they did a blind taste test for all the different categories that we had. I believe there were something like 10 different categories, and all the brewers participated on island. Not necessarily in every single category, but it was a pretty big deal. We had it actually at our Tap and Barrel in Kailua.
So how do you say this one? This doesn't look Hawaiian.
Well, the Kelly, I believe that is a Hawaiian word, but the cuvee on the back end.
Kelly Cuvée.
Cuvée.
Number 3?
Number 3. So cuvee is just a sort of hoity-toity word for blend.
Okay.
So as you see on there, there's a couple of different beers that we combined together to make.
Yeah, a cherry wild ale blended with lychee, triple aged in French oak Chardonnay.
Yeah. So that's you can see because the typeface gets really small. That's a complicated
one. There's a lot of stuff in there.
It's a lot of stuff going on right there. And it's a really busy beer for sure, that one. So the cherry wild ale is actually interesting. We use local Suriname cherries, which they look like kind of a regular cherry, except they have sort of a pumpkin shape. So it's a cherry color and cherry size, but it has lobes all the way around it. So
with all the ingredients and everything from Lanikai Brewing, the thing is, like, you guys try to source local ingredients the most?
Yeah, definitely.
How do you guys go about doing that? Is that part of your job, or what is your job over there?
So my job over there is I wear a bunch of different hats other than this one hat.
Okay.
So one of the first things that, as far as keeping the ingredients together, is inventory management. That's one of the things that I do. So we'll get in shipments from a variety of different places, from Big Island, from local farmers. It sort of depends on the year because most of the fruits that we use, especially locally, are seasonally available, so they're not available year round. So any of the things that we want to keep for an extended period of time, we have to order a big amount of, then process and freeze and keep track of. So I sort of am on the front end of that, of processing and keeping track of things that come in. And
what are the big issues you come up with local sourcing of flavors and fruits and stuff?
Well, just that is seasonality and availability of certain particular fruits. An interesting example of that would be, I didn't have one of the ones to bring, but we did one called the Holo Holo. And that one had a fruit called Gorka fruit. Have you ever heard of Gorka?
No.
Okay. And that's okay. I had never heard of it either. And that's sort of par for the course for a lot of the fruits that we use.
I'm thinking of Gurkha, the British soldiers from Nepal.
No, not quite. Although this fruit, if you had told me, if you just held one up and said, this is a fruit, this tastes really good, I would have said that you're a crazy person, because it had sort of the outside color. It's actually related to a mangosteen, if you're familiar with a mangosteen.
Yeah.
But the outside color was sort of a black, almost like an avocado, not with that sort of rumpliness, like smooth black on the outside, and had a sort of mangosteeny, almost like a peach character on the flesh.
Huh, interesting.
And if you had told me we're going to use Gorka, I was like, wait, an orca? Like something whale shaped? We're not using whales in this, are we? Because I'm not going to be behind that one. So, and then it turns out that the only place to get this locally was 2 trees on the Big Island, and we had to buy all the fruit from both those trees. That was it. There were 2.
What else did they do with those fruit?
Before then, I'm not sure. That was kind of an unknown.
I mean, it's not a popular fruit. There's only 2 trees of it.
Yeah, exactly. So somehow, and that's something that our brewmaster does, especially now that we have our master brewer, who I work under, and then myself. It allows him to go out and develop relationships with local farmers. And he just happened to have a guy that he knows on Big Island that was growing these things. So they harvested them all, put them in a box, and sent them on our way.
I mean, was that farmer doing anything with those fruit? It's like, I'll just take all your fruit. It's like, you want that stuff?
That stuff?
Nobody wants that.
Yeah, those are
we'll
weird.
take it all.
Yeah, they smell great.
I'll give you $1 for all of them. It's like, okay, take it.
Yeah, for sure. But that's when I say that that's something that I've become accustomed to is, again, our brewmaster will go out and he'll develop a relationship with a farmer, and the farmer will call him up and say, hey, it's Djibouti Kaba season.
Don't.
So yeah, I thought I'd get you on that too. That's another weird fruit. And again, I was doing what I was doing one day in the brewery, and my boss goes, hey, what do you think about putting Djibouti Kaba fruit into a beer? And I was like, okay, yeah, super. Chupacabra, yeah, whatever that thing is.
Throw it in there.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. And if you actually Google a Djibouti Kaba, it is the weirdest looking berry. It's a tropical grape, if you will, but it doesn't grow on a vine. It does grow on a tree, but not on the branches of the tree. It actually grows up the actual trunk of the tree, just right on the outside.
Cool.
So it's a cool looking fruit, but it's also really, really odd. And I'd never heard of it before we started using it. So yeah.
Do you find that you guys have to mix a lot of the fruits that are like those exotic type of fruits with common fruits or anything like that to make the taste more palatable, or does it matter?
Typically not. If anything, the sort of rare tropical fruits are a lot more delicate in a lot of ways. So, probably an example a lot of people would be familiar with is working with lychee. A lot of people here, and again, I hadn't had a lot of exposure to lychee in Denver. So when I moved here, my wife would say, try these lychee, try these things out.
Yeah, because your wife is from here.
Yeah. She grew up in Kahaluu. So she would say, try these out. They're kind of interesting. Some people like them, some people don't. And it wasn't really, anything amazing. It's a stone fruit. It's just kind of sweet and kind of nice. So if you're trying to think of a beer and you're trying to think of the flavor of lychee and trying to make something that would marry those two, it's really easy to overpower lychee. Or you have to use just a ton of it in order to make it happen. So there's, I would say more than anything, it's a consideration of how do we make a beer that's going to accommodate that sort of delicate flavor rather than trying to blend multiple fruits together. The Pog here, I would say, is maybe one of the exceptions to that, because that's just that's a Hawaii classic is Pog. So
can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely not. So
how many flavors do you guys have? Too many to count. Or do you guys differentiate them like this is how many flavors we're putting out for the season, or this is how many we're... making at this time?
So actually, with a lot of craft brewers, one of the things that you're trying to do is you're always trying to innovate, and you're always trying to sort of stay ahead of the curve, not trying to chase trends too much. But you always have to kind of be aware of what's going on. So sour beers, for instance, they kind of went through a renaissance. Probably, I would say, on the mainland, maybe 10 years ago is when sour beers kind of became a thing. And when I first moved here, there was us and 2 or 3 other places on island that were doing sours, but it wasn't really a focus for them. It was Lanikai was the first place that I saw that really tried to do a production sour that they were able to put out into stores. So as far as the different flavors that we would get into, it a lot of times will come down to what do we have available, and then we go from there. So for instance, right now we're making 2 beers that we've never made before. They're kind of a similar style to stuff that we've done, but based on the ingredients that we had, we said, all right, we're going to make this type of IPA and this type of farmhouse ale. So right now, I would say we have production-wise, these 3 labels that are similar to this, the Saison, the Porter, and the IPA. Those are the ones that we have year-round. And then the ones that are in these 22s, but with the different labels, the Mauka to Makai series, they rotate based on seasonal availability. So we have the Pog Sour, we have the Huolani, which is a strawberry sour. We have the one that's coming out soon, which is the Ravaslipa, which is yuzu. I don't know if you've ever had yuzu, but no. Yuzu is sort of like a lemon almost. It's it's sort of a hybrid between I believe it's a lemon and a nectarine, or something along those lines. And we have the Akole Maluna, which is an imperial stout that we do once every few years. So we rotate through. Yeah. Nostrovia. Or Akole Maluna, as it were.
Yeah. Was that Russian or something you said before that?
Yeah, Russian. Or Prost, German.
Prost, yes. Skål.
Skål. I don't know Skål.
Viking.
Ah.
Yeah, Skål.
Skål. That's nice. I could be in for some Viking.
You just keep it on the beard. You look a little Viking-ish.
Yeah, well, I did before. I had to shave it off. So
why is it too much getting into the beer ingredients?
No, it was more I was going back to see the relatives, and I didn't want to scare them.
Oh, the beards are in though.
Yes, they are.
I mean, I can't say anything. I can't grow a beard. Not allowed to.
It's an important thing at a brewery. You got to have at least one guy at a brewery with a beard. I think it's in the law somewhere.
It is. I think it is. Yeah.
I had a guy come in one day who said to me, it was at our brewery before we had our bar, and he said, man, I got to say, I come into any brewery, and if they don't have a guy that at least has a beard, I don't really want to try the beer. So now we have 2. So
okay, and the Greeks would say "Oppa."
Oppa.
Yeah.
I remember that one from Greek Wedding. So.
Works.
Yeah.
Oppa works.
It does.
It's easy to say. And kampai.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Oh, what else? Well, now I'm thinking, what else kind of things do the people say in different places?
I don't know. I've exhausted all of my perspicacity for cheers.
All right.
It is an unfortunate thing. It happens. Got to go on my tour of Europe, my beer tour of Europe, and I'll see what I can pick up.
All right. So what is your background? How did you come out to be in Hawaii and jump on the Lanikai Brewing team?
So I'm originally from Denver, born and raised. Spent a few years in Las Vegas going to school and ended up back there. Went to school for engineering and turned out...
UNLV?
No. I know of UNLV. I know where it is.
I thought we had something in common, man.
No, I drove by it a bunch of times.
Okay, all right. That counts.
But anyway, I ended up with an engineering degree and discovered that engineering wasn't really for me. Didn't really have a passion for it. So kind of bounced around. I was a DJ for a few years and ended up in tech support in a few different places doing phone work. And again, that'll really, make you question your career choices if you end up as a call center tech support person. So
with an engineering degree?
Yeah, exactly. So it came about that my wife and I, we wanted to raise a family. And even though I do have family in Colorado, we made the decision to move here because she has all of her extended family on the island. So we moved here, and at the time, that was when I was ending my glorious tenure as a tech support representative. And I decided, hey, if there's ever going to be a chance to move into doing beer brewing, this would be the chance. I was in between jobs, and I didn't have something lined up when we moved. So after all those years spent home brewing, I was, she got kind of sick and tired of me keeping, 300 or 400, dirty beer bottles laying around the house waiting to be cleaned. And
so you're just doing your own home brewing.
Yeah. I spent about 7 years, developing recipes and developing technique and reading books and things like that. And spent way too much money. It's one of those hobbies. It's kind of like hockey goaltending where, if you're not good at it at the beginning, you're like, well, I can just spend money and that'll make me better. It's obviously the equipment that's letting me down.
Obviously, it's not the time and the effort and the practice.
It's not being good at those things.
It's the gear.
It's the gear. The gear's letting me down. So after spending thousands and thousands of dollars on gear and recipes and all the sort of raw goods that you need in order to make it happen, I started to move into that. So we decided to move, and I just happened to be Facebook stalking LBC for about a month and a half, I would say. And my boss put out a little ad on Facebook saying, hey, we're looking for someone to come in and scrub floors. And then I went in, and that was it. The rest is history. So, but yeah.
Hey, good stories need a good beginning, man. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. You bet. The classic rock thing is a constant. It's a brewery thing, weirdly enough, is
because you got to play classic rock in a brewery.
Not necessarily,
No?
but I, as a goalie and working in a brewery, I'm a little superstitious sometimes, and so our bottling machine, which runs these 22-ounce bottles, it is a temperamental creature. I liken it to the way that guys used to talk about steam engines back in the day, because it all runs on pressure and sensors, and if something is off, it doesn't necessarily have warning lights. You just got to kind of,
Hit it with a hammer.
Well, you got to sense it, and you have to talk to it meanly, nicely, meanly.
Well, sometimes they need, a little, what is it called? Tough love.
A little tough love, a firm hand, as it were.
Be a little mean, but give them a hug after.
Yeah. So, so our particular machine, once I took over running it, which I've been now kind of running that machine for 2 years. Once I took over running it from the previous guy, I decided, well, things that I can control, I'm going to try and do the same thing every single time. So that way, if something is different or something changes, I will know that was the thing that was wrong. And then one of the very first days that we did a bottling run, it went really, really badly. And I looked at all the different things I had done. I had taken notes. And the only thing that was different was the music that was playing. Because the guy before me used to run a AC/DC Spotify station continuously while we would do bottling runs. And I realized that was the problem. It didn't get its AC/DC music, so that was what I ended up reinstituting. But
that's a thing.
Yeah,
that's a thing. Like people are starting to realize that like plants and I guess beer, they respond positively or negatively to music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because not only is it the music, but it's also how the music makes the people around it feel, and so it's giving off those vibes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it actually works.
Well, I haven't tried it on any plants, but I can tell you on the machine that whatever it is, it's a sort of stroke of good luck. So.
Oh yeah, because they have like experience where they have like a plant here and a plant there, and people will go up to plant A and they'll be like giving it compliments and like saying I love you and you're the greenest green, and giving it positive attention. And then the other one, they're either ignoring it or they're like cussing at it or saying you're stupid, I hate you, why are you here? Plant. You're worthless. And that one will die.
I watched that Mythbusters actually, where they tested that. That was cool. So.
And it wasn't a myth, right? It actually works.
Yeah, they were completely baffled. They couldn't give a good reason one way or the other, but other than that, and so
it's like the plant's a living thing.
Yeah,
of course. Why wouldn't it have feelings?
Exactly.
Because you think it's a plant? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Get in tune with your avatar.
Exactly. So I juiced up the machine using that, and it runs a lot better when you play AC/DC.
So do I.
It's anymore though. If it's the only negative impact is that any other time I want to listen to my Spotify account, it's always suggesting the same playlist. It's like, dude, you love this playlist. It's like every week you're listening to this 3-4 hours. Like you must love this radio station. So here's something like it.
Play some Justin Bieber, and the beer tastes like. Fruits, more fruity?
A little bit more fruity.
Okay.
Although he has some silky mitts.
He does. He plays hockey.
He does.
He's a hockey player.
He does. I saw I forget. Still, my favorite photo of him was when he was playing that celebrity game and Chris Pronger had him pinned to the glass.
Smashed him up against the glass.
Yeah.
It was funny.
That was really, really
But,
excellent.
Chris Pronger could do that to any of us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, it was because at the same time as Bieber is in pain, pushed up against the glass, Pronger has this ear-to-ear grin, like, I got him.
he's missing teeth and everything.
It's like, this is going to live forever. This is even better. Yeah. That made me very happy.
That makes me happy just thinking about it.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
I'm blooming and flourishing.
That's your positive feed. That's
seeing someone else's negative.
It's like he's just scrolling through his phone looking at pictures of Justin Bieber getting smashed in hockey. This is so weird. He's just got the smile. I don't know what to say.
But he's very productive, so let him go.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
So what's this here? What is this that I hear about Lanikai Brewing sending some stuff up in the outer atmosphere or to space?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this actually, it was probably one of the most widely featured articles that we had. I believe it was in Forbes, something along those lines. And it was actually born out of, interestingly enough, as with most things in a brewery, it was born out of some people drinking at a bar. So as you know, we're over in Kailua, and we get a lot of military guys that come through, Air Force, Army, Marines, all those sorts come through. And some of the guys that came through were U-2 pilots. So I didn't get to meet these guys. As is typical, our brewmaster who comes up with these neat ideas, he's the one that gets to be on the front lines, whereas I just get to read about it in Forbes.
And for those of you who don't know, a U-2 is that spy plane that can fly super, super, super high. Not fast, but just really, really high.
Really, really, really high. And it's the most difficult plane to land and fly from what I saw, again, on Mythbusters.
Right, because it's got like a huge wingspan.
Yeah, it has like a really weird landing and all that. It's basically just a big glider.
Yeah.
So these U-2 pilots were in the bar, and they were drinking at the bar. And I believe that our brewmaster knew them previously or was friends of a friend, something like that. So he ended up getting introduced to them, and they started talking. And as part of that conversation, it came up that we were working on our wild ale, wild yeast, wild bacteria program. And he was curious if anybody's ever asked them to try and do capture of any sort of microbes while they're up. Because as you know, they're in a pressure suit. And I'm not sure if they either ventilate or what they do, but they're able to open the actual cabin to equalize the pressure once they get up to that super, super crazy high height. So it actually has to take in atmosphere from where they're at 70, 80,000 feet or something along those lines. So in the conversation, my boss essentially volunteered to create a growth medium, which is like agar, typical sort of stuff. I think that was actually either honey or something along those lines. I'm not sure what he ended up using. It might have been we have this malt extract stuff that you can use. But he created a couple sets of growth medium in some Petri dishes and sent it off with them. Said, hey, if you can go up and open these things while you're open to the stratosphere, that would be awesome. Sure enough, they were nice enough on their next flight from, I believe it was from here to California. They went up and opened them up, and then they just closed them real quick, put them in a box that we had prepared, and sent it off to, I believe it was Maniacal Yeast, which is back east in Maine, I think. And the Maniacal Yeast guys called us up, said, hey, you got something. We're not sure what it is, but we're going to take a look at it and see if we can figure it out. And the first thing they told us, they go, well, it's not yeast, which we were hoping for. So we were kind of let down. And they said, no, it's not yeast. It's not bacteria either. It's sort of a weird sort of hybrid. I believe it's called Picha or Picha K. It's this strange sort of subset of really, really small microbes that I guess apparently exist in the stratosphere. They exist everywhere, but this particular one existed up there. And joy of joys, it actually was able to ferment sugar, which was the primary thing that we're after, because that's what we do, is fermentation. If anything, making beer is basically making fermentation food, yeast food, bacteria food. So they isolated it for us. They sent us a pitch down with some instructions, and we got to mess around with it. So turns out that it needed a few extra little helpers, because it was Picha doesn't necessarily have all the tools to do all the pieces of the fermentation process, but it did ferment a little bit, and then we finished it off with a wild yeast strain that we had captured here. So the final product ended up being a pretty light drinking beer, but it was definitely unique. Had kind of a sourdough type of characteristic to it when it was fermenting, and then once it finished, it dried out and had a real nice, just sort of clean ale taste with a little bit of acidity that was generated by the PGK. So that was the very first space beer that we did. And we've since recaptured that yeast and repitched it. And that's sort of what you do with these living products, the microbes that we get, is you get a small amount that are isolated, introduce them to a growth medium, a beer, and then of a certain particular size. So the maniacal pitch that they sent was really only good for about 5 gallons worth of beer to ferment it out. So put it in there for the 5, let it do its thing, and then once it's done, then we can capture that amount that's in there, because obviously the microbes propagate and they grow and multiply. And then that's now more, and we can use that for a bigger batch of beer. Eventually you size it up to where we want to go. So
is there anybody else on the planet that's done something like that?
So you'll, if you look around on some packaging, you'll see a variety of different breweries around the world and around the country have tried stuff where they call it like a space beer or something along those lines. And I believe Ninkasi was one of the breweries that tried that. You'd have to double check me, but they had from what I understand, they had a sort of an actual like Estes rocket type situation where they had a really, really large version of an enthusiast rocket that they shot up, and then they had a petri dish, or they actually had yeast inside that they sent up really high into the stratosphere on a rocket and then came down, and then they used that. But as far as actually capturing yeast from a high flying device, and trying to make beer with it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, I mean, I would assume that there's probably some microbes that have been picked up on satellites, but, when they come crashing back to Earth and, burn up on re-entry, probably aren't a whole lot of
making
microbes.
beer. Yeah. No.
Yeah, you're not going to make any beer with any satellite parts. Although, if you could, talk to me, I'd be interested.
Give you a call. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But that folds neatly into the whole Wild Ale program that we've been doing. And this is actually probably one of our company's passions, one of the things that we're really trying to do and grow, because Hawaii is home to many, many different climates. I believe it's, 6 out of 7 out of the different sort of biomes that you have that exist.
Yeah, because you have, the jungles, the ocean, obviously, and the deserts, and you have the snow-capped mountains.
And savanna and So it's all but one, and I can't remember what the one might be. I think that's just Arctic, but what have you.
Yeah, we don't have it.
So there's an incredible amount of biodiversity here, and as a result, you have very, very unique forms of yeast, because yeast is everywhere all the time, and so the stuff that grows here is unique to the Hawaiian Islands, especially given its isolation. So we've taken samples of various different items at various different places in an attempt to sort of capture that. And this is now, I believe we're 2+ years into this program, where our boss will essentially go out to random places around the island. He has a house on the Big Island, so he's gone to a couple places around Volcano over there and around there. And then up north by Wailua, there was a farm that we went and we did some wild capture at. And then just a few months ago, we did a collaboration with Big Island Brew House, where we took a device that we call Cool Ship, which is essentially sort of like a mobile hot tub for beer. And the idea is it's an old school brewing method from Europe and whatnot. It's to encourage spontaneous fermentation, where you take this bathtub and you take a bunch of beer out to whatever location or inside a brewery and pour the beer into it warm and hot, and then leave it open, exposed to the elements overnight. So anything that can fly in there, land in there, gets in there and inoculates it. And fingers crossed, the next day you wake up, you have a fermenting beer with yeast that was in the environment that the Cool Ship was in.
No.
So we've done quite a bit of that. Well, not with the Cool Ship just yet. We only got that recently. But the wild ales that we're working with, the Kelly Cuvée here and some of the other ones, this one was sour that we did. So the lactobacillus was only wild captured in the brewery. But we have a couple of different strains that we've isolated and we've been working with, and they have very unique properties.
Where can people find Lanikai brewed beers?
So they are available in most of the grocery stores around the island. The Hawaiian Wild Ales are a little bit more exclusive. I believe that they are featured in Whole Foods and definitely at Tap and Barrel in Kailua and a few other different spots. The production beers are going to be in Safeway, but the Wild Ales, because of their limited nature, because it's difficult to produce them, frankly, these big 750 bottles, they don't really make it around to quite as many places, but they are out there. They are definitely out there. So, and we always on our Facebook page and Instagram, if we're going to have a new one where we go out there and we're going to launch something, we'll put it out there so people know.
Now, one of my buddies was asking me, what about any non-alcoholic products?
Non-alcoholic products. So this is, it's sort of a new frontier for me, coming at it. I've been taking a break from drinking, for good health and a variety of other reasons. So when you do that and you're still a beer enthusiast and you still want to drink beer, it's difficult. It's rough out there. Your options, especially when you're walking into Safeway and you get down to the end of the aisle, it's nothing that you're interested and everything is just kind of the same. So so it makes it tough. It really does.
Yeah. Because you're making this stuff all day and that's your passion, but then
yeah. Well, the good thing is that I really enjoy the science of it, and you still get to taste all the different stuff, and you still get to see people enjoy it, which is sort of the biggest thing for me now. But so non-alcoholic beers are fascinating, and frankly, I would love to produce them, but it is a very difficult process, as I would sort of get into. So typically, the ones that you're going to see, the mass-produced ones, like sort of your Heineken Zero, that's sort of the brand new one that's come out. But the old classics like O'Doul's and things like that, they use a variety of sort of harsh methods to really get the alcohol out, because they ferment a beer and brew a beer just like you normally would. And then at the end of the process, you have to get the alcohol out of it. That's typically the way that it's done, rather than some sort of weird witchcraft involving, some yeast that doesn't produce any alcohol or something like that. And it's gone. So the old school method was to boil it. But when you boil beer after it's already fermented, you lose volatile hop compounds and good flavor. You can't boil an IPA and expect it to taste very good.
No, it's the taste. That's why I've never liked O'Doul's.
Yeah.
Like I've had it a couple of times and just been like, yeah. Do you have water?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, water. I'll take carbonated water. So they've been coming. A variety of small brewers have sort of taken up the mantle of trying to create a good tasting non-alcoholic beer with varying levels of success. It's difficult to do, and they're using a couple of different methods that don't involve boiling. I think the most interesting method is sort of a reverse osmosis type setup, where they have a alcohol exclusive membrane, and they pump the beer under pressure past this membrane, and it causes it to sort of weep out alcohol.
Right. It's like a filter for the alcohol.
Yeah.
Because only the smaller atoms are going to make it through that
or
membrane.
Something along those lines. I'm still not 100% clear on that. I do know that those systems are really complicated and really expensive. So if you're going to do that, that's sort of the only thing that you can do. And so there's a few out there. And so it's not a wasteland. I've had success here at actually Down to Earth. That's the grocer. They carry probably the best selection of NAs on the island. So if you're looking for an NA, that's where you got to go. It's right next to the hop tea, which incidentally we've actually made at Lanikai Brewing. So
the hop tea?
Yeah.
What is that?
Hop tea it's basically iced tea that we brew in-house, and then
with hops.
You dry hop it. So it actually smells and looks like a beer and has a lot of the beer type characteristics, but it's iced tea. So yeah, I love it. So
I've never heard of that. I got to try that.
Yeah. There's a couple of commercially available examples. I didn't bring any tonight, unfortunately, but I made a couple of batches. It was one of my passion projects this year to try different types of hops and whatever, and figure out the dosing rates for tea. It's fascinating getting into tea and realizing different steeping temperatures and whatnot can really make a difference to how the tea tastes. And I was fortunate enough to get some input from a gentleman from, I believe, Japan, who is sort of a tea guru. And he was nice enough to give me some tips and basically say, hey, it's too hot. You're making it way too hot. Stop that.
You're teeing wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
I love my moose mug.
Yeah. Well, again, it's appropriately sized. And completely on accident, it's actually a really good beer cup. The shape is really, really nice. You'd be surprised how much glassware plays into, a good beer experience.
Oh, I did not know that. Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of knew, but...
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things at our bar. One of the things that we do is different sorts of beer have different sorts of beer glasses. So we have like 5 or 6 different types of glasses. So it's not on accident that you'll get a Pilsner in a certain type of tall glass. You'll get an IPA in sort of a tulip glass. And so, yeah, but it's definitely trying to enhance the experience.
But with the glasses.
Exactly.
I mean, because wine is like that too, right?
Yeah. It's olfactory. So it's, tuning in your nose and your tongue to get the whole thing to play together.
Yeah, because this is more meant for like eggnog.
Yeah. Well, eggnog is, that would be a really good one for like a Belgian quad. I would drink a quad out of
Belgian quad.
Belgian quad.
Did you just make that up?
I did not.
Okay.
Although if I did, you wouldn't know.
I don't know. So what do you think is the future of the home brews and craft beers and stuff like that? Where do you see Lanikai growing, and where do you see like just beer in general going?
So one of the things that we've all been seeing, you hear about it in a lot of the industry stuff, but you don't necessarily see it all the time. But one of the things that we've been seeing is that the beer market is slowing down a little bit. It's a lot of people like to make the joke that alcohol is sort of recession proof. Especially when things are good, people want to celebrate, and when things are bad, they need something to console themselves. So, but that's not to say that that's happening, across the entire industry, but there are definitely changing tastes. And, for us, trying to sort of be cognizant of that and what people are drinking, what people are into, it's an important thing for us to try and stay ahead of. But for us, I think we're always going to be focused, again, on the island inspired thing, but keeping it as local as we can. So we are starting to do distribution. We opened up distribution to Australia earlier this year, Pacific North, or last year, I suppose. It's 2020, so it'd be last year. Pacific Northwest last year up to Washington and Oregon, and then we're moving into Japan by the end of this year, which is kind of cool. But most of our sales are going to be on island, so trying to stay focused and stay local. And in general, I think that as a brewing industry, that's the way that it's going. You'll see, I think that you're going to see fewer and fewer of sort of the large major breweries that just sort of come out of nowhere and all of a sudden are, being distributed across 50 states. The biggest brewer in Hawaii is Maui. They have a gigantic facility now. I believe it's capable of doing 125,000 barrels a year, barrels 31 gallons. So just huge amount of beer that they can produce, but they're not necessarily needing all of that. And their model is entirely focused on distribution. Whereas what you're seeing open up now, for instance, over in Chinatown, there's Stewbaum and Stonewall Brewing just opened their new location over there. They've been sort of locked in a permitting, sort of doldrums for a little while, but they finally got their doors open, and hopefully he'll be producing a lot of stuff. But he's open now, and then you have Hanakoa Brewing that opened up just recently, and they're focused on sort of an experience where you actually go to the brewery and you get to see the brewing equipment and all of that. So I think that the local sort of neighborhood beer experience is kind of the way that a lot of the newer spots are going, and I think for me that's where the brewing industry is going to be the most fun, because then you actually get to connect with the people that consume your beer rather than just putting it on a pallet, putting it on a ship and saying, fare thee well. Yeah. I hope it gets there. So it's nice to be able to go into the pub and, see, on a Friday night, I'll do that occasionally, just kind of walk by and poke my head in, and you see, 50 or 100 people in there. They're all drinking beer that you had a hand in making. It's kind of nice. It's kind of a cool thing to do. And that's where I would like to see the industry really go, is to stay focused on local beer and your local neighborhood, not trying to, be gigantic. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to maybe not have blazing success. You're not going to see, another brewery gold rush, as it were, that maybe was 10 or 15 years ago. But I think you'll see a lot more sort of really, really high quality beer made locally and closely.
Now, is it the beer industry that's declining, or is that just like craft beer industry that's declining, or it's alcohol consumption that's declining?
So if you look at like beer consumption generally across the board, some of the biggest brands that have been taking a hit are some of the big macro brands. So say like some of the Budweiser type brands, they might not necessarily be taking a big hit, but they might be losing 5% overall. Craft beer is coming in and biting off a piece of that. So that's where some of that's going. But in general, people are moving towards things like hard seltzers and, some of the pre-canned cocktails and all that. And it's not necessarily something that we're always going to be able to do. Your liquor license prevents you from making certain types of stuff. But we made a hard seltzer this year, and it's a completely different challenge. And that's where the sort of fun of the fermentation science comes along, and trying to create something that, not necessarily everybody has a super, enthusiastic opinion about. Hard seltzers are definitely a little polarizing, but trying to create something like that is true to your brand and is also something that you're doing really, really well. I think that's, where, we're going to find our niche. But yeah, overall, the brewing industry isn't going to go anywhere, but trying to be aware of what consumers are looking for and catering to those tastes. You're at the end of the day, you're making a product for people. Yeah. If you I could make beer in a vacuum all day long, and it'd be interesting and fascinating and strange. But my favorite styles of beer, I really like a black IPA or a black lager, and it's not necessarily the most commercially viable thing. You're not going to see Budweiser coming along. You're not going to see a Heineken black IPA anytime soon. So.
It's more like those lighter beers, like this. Even this lighter beer, it's nice, it's great. It's sour, so there's definitely like a time and a place for some of these beers.
Yeah, exactly.
But when the time and place is right, it's like, oh, that's exactly what I want.
Mm-hmm.
This is good stuff.
I'm glad that you like it. I'm glad that you like it. Those mangoes took an awful lot of time to process. So.
Oh yeah, were you hand squishing them?
I was not. One of our other guys. I did a little bit, but one of our other guys did most of the mangoes this year. So.
He's just with his hands, he's just pounding them.
It sort of got to that point. There was a as the mangoes ripen, the first few ones you can cut with a knife, and you do the nice cut, where you put the little pieces and do it.
Oh, he's doing one at a time?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So hand processing, that's it's a big part of what we do. And we got our lychee in, and when we get the lychee harvest, that usually comes in like April-ish for us. And there was one year we did, I want to say almost 3,000 pounds of lychee processed by hand. So you crack the shell and then you pull the pit out. That's one. Crack the shell, pull the pit out. That's two.
Is there a way to get that stuff pre-cut, pre-molded? You don't take it apart, I guess.
I mean, you can buy purees, but for us, it's there's nobody locally that's really doing it, at least in the volume that we need. So, got to do it ourselves.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, it's a lot of lychee.
That's labor intensive.
Yeah,
that's right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely one of the costs of doing it island inspired and doing it authentic is
and it makes it really great.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a labor of love.
Yeah, because you're getting the fruit fresh.
Yeah. So we'll get the fruit in from most of the time. I'm continuously astonished by the Big Island and their ability to get in fruit, but it'll come in and some of it's ready to process, some of it's not. So and some of it's ready to use and some of it isn't. So we have some big freezers, and if we're not ready to use it right then, throw it in the freezer and pop it out when it's ready to go. So that's what we did with the cherries in that one and some of the other ones that we've been working with. But.
Do you have a favorite?
Favorite beer from us?
Yeah.
I would say right now, this one right here, the Pua, is probably my favorite.
Pua Alo.
Yeah, Pua Alo.
What kind of taste has that got?
So that's the hibiscus red. So it's the base beer is going to have sort of a caramely type note, not a lot of hops in it. And then we soured it with lactobacillus, so you get sort of a like a tart, but really, really rich sort of raisin character. And then the hibiscus that's in there adds a little bit of that floral hibiscusy type of flavor and a really interesting deep color. So it kind of pours like a carbonated Merlot when it's like right where it needs to be. So it's really, really, really nice. It reminds me of the first sour beer that I ever had that I really, really liked, which was it's called the Duchess, and it's a Flemish red from Belgium. So
now one of the last things I wanted to touch on. Social media is and advertising and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of because you guys have a Facebook page.
Yes, we do.
And you guys are always putting up like glorious, nice pictures. Who does that, and what's your guys' take on the social media whole aspect of the business? Does that help you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. It's necessary. I will say just as as an individual, I'm not a really, really good social media type of person. So we've been fortunate enough to have some people that come into the brewery that are really, really talented photographers and people that are enthusiastic hikers and that are active, that are out in the community all the time. And so we definitely encourage people to go out, take a bottle of beer with them, or take a growler with, come to the brewery, take a growler to the beach, and then just take a picture with it wherever you happen to be. So a lot of times we'll get really cool, interesting submissions from those folks. And I like it. It's awesome to see. I believe we had one of our guys that was an employee, one of our bartenders, I think he went to Indonesia, took some really cool photos in Indonesia that we were able to post. And just wild to see how the beer gets around.
Yeah, because that's like you're not having to put out that kind of advertising. You're just having like a community advertising for yourselves.
Sort of that. I like the organic nature of it.
Yeah.
So, you have people that like what you do. And so one of the most direct ways you can get feedback is them taking a photo of it in a really cool place. Somebody took the time and the care to take it to that spot. Because, glass is heavy, man.
Yeah, it's like, hey.
Yeah. You gotta, if you're going hiking, you gotta schlep it up the hill, and then you gotta enjoy it, and then you gotta get down the hill after you drink the beer, which is, could be challenging.
But it's got like carbs and electrolytes and stuff inside. It's healthy.
It is. Monks used to drink beer on a fast, so it's good for you.
All the immigrants coming over from Europe to the New World.
There you go.
They had to drink their bread.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's as far as the social media aspect of it. It's really it's one of my favorite things to see is when we'll get those sort of photos back. But we have some people, and you're always trying to come up with interesting ideas. We're extraordinarily fortunate as the location that we have, even right there on the Hamakua Marsh. It's really, really photogenic in the afternoons. So we'll go out, we'll make a new beer, and then it's like, oh man, we'll be in the process of making it, or be in the process of making fruit or processing fruit, and it's like, man, we need to take a good looking photo of this. And so we have a ready-made little photo studio out back. You just open up the back door, just walk straight out, and then especially in the afternoon, you get a pretty sunset or something like that over the marsh. It's really nice.
Yeah, location is key, man.
Yeah,
especially with that, being in Hawaii and stuff like that. Yeah. To get like great views, and it's just naturally there. And sometimes we take advantage of it.
Yeah,
just never take it for granted.
Yeah,
because it's great.
Yeah, I was just being after New Year's, seeing all the videos and photos of all the crazy the fireworks displays that went off.
Oh my god, that was crazy.
So I was actually thinking to myself, like, man, it was a missed opportunity. If we had been able to get like a bottle right up there with all the fireworks as a background.
Nice,
or something along those lines. Maybe next year.
Next year, because I'm guaranteed there's gonna be fireworks just like that next year. No, we put in a law in place that's illegal.
Yeah. Well, methinks that that's not being terribly well enforced.
Sorry.
So, no, it's okay. It's just kind of amusing. I was remarking. So our house in Kaneohe, we're close-ish to the fire station. It's right over there on Cam Highway, and so you can always hear when there's a call out, because they go by. And I was remarking that I heard a call out at about 5:15, and then the fireworks started. I didn't hear another call out for about 5 hours. All the emergency folks were either too busy or they're just sitting in the firehouse like,
nope,
no, we're good. We're good. You guys are on your own.
Are you dead? No. Okay. Well, we're not coming.
If he's on fire, put him out.
The garden hose.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was crazy. The kind of fireworks we have here is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's good that there's a lower wildfire risk. I'm so used to that from Colorado, where in Denver, where I'm from.
Not that it hasn't happened, because it has happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mililani side. Yeah.
Did they have a fire this year, or it's happened? No,
this was in the past. Yeah. Okay. Huge brush fire that all along the H2 freeway.
Oh, jeez. Yikes.
And west side out in Kapolei and stuff. That's all dry grass and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's another one of those biomes we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The dry grassland with all the antelope. It's all the antelope out by Kapolei or something.
It's the antelope's fault.
Yeah, but that's something I'm used to from Colorado, where, in Denver, the big joke is that everyone drives up to Wyoming where fireworks are legal. And you go across the border there's all these fireworks. Like, literally, you'll cross the border into Cheyenne, and the first thing that you'll notice is, boom, giant fireworks stands. But then everyone coming back south, you have all the state patrol guys on the other side of the border going, spending the afternoon in Cheyenne. Picturesque Cheyenne, where it's really windy and cloudy today. Okay, well, let's take a look in your trunk. Oh, officer, I swear I wasn't buying any aerials. Just snakes. Just the little snakes and sparklers all day long. So, yeah.
Scotty, thanks a whole lot for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Everybody, Lanikai Brewing. It's awesome stuff. Thank you again for bringing the samples and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, definitely keep you stocked up for a while. So.
Yeah.
They're definitely beers to share.
I can't even do one. These things are big.
Yeah, it's all right. We are moving to 500 mils probably later this year, so they're a little smaller than this guy. So, but still enormous.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Yeah,
thanks so much, man.
No problem.
Everybody, Lanikai Brewing, check them out, taste them out. Oh my God, it's so good. This one is the sour Kavena beer.
Yep.
And I like it.
All right.
Excellent. Have some more of that.
Definitely. Well, we have it at Tap and Barrel over there in Kailua, so that's where our bar location is. And then
Tap and Barrel.
That's where it is, right on the Hamakua Marsh. It's super picturesque. So definitely come and check us out and drink some beer, and maybe spot me in the wild.
The big beard.
Exactly.
Stay happy, Hawaii.